Welcome to this new episode of Policy Square by Primus Partners. Today's guest needs no introduction. Dr. Mukesh Aghi is President and CEO of the USISPF, a person well known the world over in pushing US-India relationship, a well-known person in corporations, has led major companies like L&T in India and IBM across the world, and bestowed with a number of awards. The JRD Leadership Award, Government of India has honored him with the Pravasi Bharati Saman. But what is little known about him is that he's an avid mountaineer and a marathon. And I think, Dr. Aghi, you're the right person as a marathon expert and as a mountaineer to lead forward this charge of the US-India strategic partnership.
Thank you.
So very fortunate to have you leading this engagement between the two countries. And very welcome to Primus Policy Square. So also congratulations on a major achievement. This year, the United States became India's largest trading partner.
Absolutely.
And that's a changing global, changing dynamic. So I think one part is the software layer, which is the data and where it lies, but I think the data devices, the hardware behind it, is also a matter of concern in the sense that, there's a country of concern from where that device is originating. We don't know what that device is doing, and 5G and now 6G networks, and data can flow across to some places it was not intended to go quite easily. So I think the kind of framework that India and US corporate leaders are laying together in coming together, and the process that you are midwifing in your role as the leader at the Strategic Partnership Forum, I think this is really fabulous. One sort of, last question, thought in my mind is, India clearly has produced a great global public good in terms of citizen intervention and building up a tech stack of citizen and public data. I think there is tremendous possibility of now taking this to scale, both for human advantage as well as, some commercial advantage for both the countries. I mean, look at what CoWIN did, look at what UID is doing. It's a system that's, sort of brought together a huge number of possibilities that didn't exist earlier. So how do US industry and Indian industry come together to leverage this, what I call a global public good that India has created over the last 5 or 7 years, and take it forward to the whole world? And, we look at development in an entirely different perspective.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing I have to compliment the government is coming up with its own vaccine during the crisis of COVID, and it was an affordable vaccine, like 150 rupees, whereas in the US we were paying $18, even though it was given by the government. But more important is to be able to get over 2 billion shots across territory and geographies which are inaccessible. To me, that shows the effectiveness and efficiency of the government itself. But when you come into, and you basically it sends a message that India can be a pharmacy to the world. It can come up with scalable and affordable healthcare solutions for the citizens, not only just India, but rest of the world also. India spends less than 2% of its GDP on healthcare. US spends 18% of its GDP on healthcare, and still we're not as efficient in a lot of cases like India is. So that's one aspect where I think both countries can work together. And what I'm seeing is very fascinating trends happening. If you look at a lot of US companies came into India for labor arbitrage. That was done, and basically they moved into producing value proposition. More R&D has started happening. What I'm seeing now trend is a lot of these companies are coming in and setting up India as an innovation center, coming up with solutions for the rest of the world itself. And to me that's very encouraging. You look at Pfizer, you look at Merck, they all are doing that, leveraging the Indian talent. And in fact, if you look at Qualcomm, generates 50% of its IP from his labs in India itself. Samsung does the same thing also. So what we're seeing is the world is leveraging Indian, I call it intellect, to drive value proposition, not only just purely from an IP perspective, but solutions also. So that's one aspect. Now you mentioned about UPI stack and all those stuff. I think that's a phenomenal story for India. When you look at, I was in a pharmacy in Khan Market. Somebody bought a medicine for 7 rupees. Just basically look at the QR code, paid 7 rupees, transaction happened, efficient, effective, and secure. So I think if we can take that to rest of the world, I know there is we've gone to Singapore, for example. That's going to be a pilot project or so. Why not leverage this? So I think India is now becoming a hotbed of innovation, and which is going to the rest of the world. I'll give you an example on space. We have over 326 space startups in India, and they're doing some fantastic innovation. There used to be a joke about India's, it's a fact actually, India's mission to the Mars. The cost of that mission was like $83 million, which is cheaper than the movie they made, Gravity. So I think India, frugal engineering, is now coming up with a solution which is very effective, scalable, and global itself. So I think I see a win-win value proposition between the two countries, and we need to leverage that.
These are some remarkable messages you're giving, Mukesh, and it's so heartening because, as you rightly said earlier, we may have started off with labor arbitrage, but I think today we have a knowledge arbitrage, and I see global capability centers of some of the finest IT companies, hardware, auto companies. I mean, in places out of Europe and US have global capability centers, designing their engines and things like that. So, and this is where people are not looking for labor arbitrage. So this is where they're looking for the best people.
Yeah.
Because these outputs of these GCCs, the global capability centers, the IP and processes that will be globally used to drive efficiencies and profits for the firm. So I think that entire shade of technology cooperation between India and US is really changing and is the next step that's going forward. Thank you so much for your thoughts, Mukesh. As always, it's a wonderful pleasure to meet you. Whenever I meet you, there are I see those thoughts going around in your head, and I think it will be great for our listeners, and a number of our policymakers are also our listeners, and they will factor in these ideas going forward, and I look forward to meeting you again.
Well, thank you once again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.